All right, ladies and the kugel recipe. Absolutely. All right. Bonus. If you make it to the end of the class, you get my kugel recipe. Just saying. Just saying. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Gonna reveal it. All right. Let's jump in. We have a lot to talk about. David, welcome. Good to see you. Hey. All right. So let's jump in. Torah portion this week is Tavo. And here is the tea, as the kids say. All right. I don't know if anyone says that. Here's the deal. This Torah portion is long, but not at the beginning. The first few readings go fly by. But as the Torah portion wears on, there is a very long reading. And that reading contains what we know as the tochacha. What is the tochacha? That literally means the rebuke, the klalot, the curses, basically 98 curses that the Torah details, or Moses in his final speech to the people details, for not being true to the covenant with Hashem. And the beginning is, those might be a little bit cold. They'll warm up. So here's how it works. The beginning of the parasha talks about the mitzvah bikurim and other things. It then says if you follow the commandments, you'll get blessings. And it lists blessings, very nice blessings, beautiful blessings. And it says, but if you don't follow the covenant, if you don't follow the ways of Torah mitzvot, then it goes page after page after page. And when you read it, I don't know that anyone should read it as casual reading, but it's a little bit scary, a little bit frightening. Some of the things it talks about, fleeing from the enemies, and one will rise up against you, and 7 of you will run away. You'll be afraid of things that are not even there, right? You'll imagine that there's danger when there's not even danger. That's at the extent of not only the suffering, but also the fear that's going to be kind of like psychological suffering and trauma and warfare. Talks about resorting to cannibalism because there's not going to be any food. It really talks about horrific things. All right, one second. So it really talks about horrific things. And what I think is relevant to talk about is how we frame the tocha, how we frame, hey, come on in, how we frame the curses, how we frame these klalot. So the way we're going to do this is by analyzing a few of the verses that detail the klala, detail the curses. Then we're going to look at an overarching perspective on why is it that God in the Torah, why is it that we have difficulty, etc. Why is it that we suffer? Why is it that there's galut, that there's exile, etc. And then we're going to get into a puzzling midrash about God's regrets and walk away with hopefully incredible life lessons about the nature of the world and our responsibility to make this world a better place. Okay, so before we get into the text, I do want to mention something else. That is that there's a bit of an anomaly. Like when you read the Torah, a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, we read the Torah portion of Balak. And the Torah portion of Balak the king, hires Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And the curses come out as blessings. So it turns out that when you're reading the Torah and you encounter blessings, who's the one that's blessing the Jewish people? Bilam, who's an evil prophet. And who's the one that's cursing the Jewish people? Moshe. What's going on here? Moshe delivers the curses, and Balaam delivers the blessings. It's like, what's going on here? It's backwards. Moses should be blessing, and Balaam should be cursing. I mean, first of all, no one should be cursing. But the whole thing is, if someone's cursing, it makes Moshe's cursing and Balaam is blessing. The whole thing doesn't make sense. It's like opposite day. So what's going on? I want to share with you the following. There's a line that says like this: if Moshe would have blessed us and Bilam would have cursed us, we wouldn't have no one would have taken any of them seriously, right? If Moshe would have blessed the people, the nations of the world would say, well, obviously, what else? Of course he's going to bless his own people. And if Bilam cursed us, we would say, of course he did. We're not taking that seriously. He's an anti-Semite, stam a hater, right? A hater's going to hate, right? I think Taylor Swift once said, a hater's going to hate. Maybe not. So why am I taking it so seriously? And blesser is gonna bless, so Moshe blesses. Now that Bilam does the blessing, a sworn anti-Semite blessing the people. Matovo Alecha Yaakov Mishkanesecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your tents, your dwelling places, O Israel. Even Bilam sees us in a good light. Okay, whoa, look at that. Got to respect that. And when Moshe says, guys, be careful. I love y'all, but listen, if you're not careful, sorry, my daughter keeps on getting calls that are coming up on my device. But listen, when Moses comes and says the curses, at that point, it's like we got to take that seriously. We have to really start thinking like, maybe this is something we should be careful of. So that's kind of the analysis. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with text number 1. Let me pull this up online for those that are joining us on Zoom. Then we are going to do some reading. Okay. Torah portion again is Ki Tavo or Ki Savo, depending on your preferred pronunciation. Deuteronomy chapter 28. But who's counting? Kidding, all of us. All right, Shifra, if you don't mind, please read text number 1.
And God will scatter you among all the nations from one end of the earth to the other. And among those nations you will not be calm, nor will your foot find rest. There God will give you a trembling heart, dashed hopes, and a depressed soul. And if your life will hang in suspense before you, you will be in fear night and day, and you will not believe in your life. In the morning you will say, if only it were evening. In the evening you will say, if only it were morning. Because of the fear in your heart that you will experience, and because of the sights that you will behold.
Thank you. And this is talking about galus or galut, exile. This is straight up talking about the exilic condition, right? As we see in the first verse, God will scatter you among all the nations. That is diaspora Jewish life. That's living in the diaspora. That's living in exile, in galut. That's being banished from the land, not banished, but being dispersed, scattered from Israel, and finding ourselves all over. And then it says there, there won't be calm, there won't be rest, trembling heart, dashed hopes, depressed soul. And then it talks about in the morning, last verse that we read, you will say if only we're evening. In other words, in the day, it'll be like, let's end this day. And then at night, we'll be able to sleep. Like, I can't wait for the morning. In the morning, at least there's light. It's going to be an existence. Again, this is like the curse. There'll be an existence that is everything, terrifying, and nothing that's calm. So this is the prophecy. This is the thing. Now, here's the thing. We know, and this is brought down in the books, and we'll see it soon in text too, that everything that was promised or everything that was predicted, unfortunately, has come throughout Jewish history. Literally, notwithstanding how horrific some of these. This is just a sampling. 98 different curses. Notwithstanding how horrific some of them are, they all have come to pass. Take a look at the Abarbanel, text number 2. Tavo, please read text 2. The Abarbanel tells us about how this prophecy came true.
It is important to know that the curses mentioned in this Torah portion are not meant as exaggerated threats to intimidate Jews into obedience. Rather, they were in the spirit of a sacred, divine prophecy foretelling the future.
I don't know if that's any. Thank you. I don't know if that's any better. I mean, they're not threats. They're just promises. Like, great. That doesn't really soothe the soul. But nonetheless, I don't think it's about soothing the soul. I think it's about just laying out what's what and what's the truth. The truth is that we have experienced exile. We've experienced suffering, fear, pogroms, having to run around, hoping for night, hoping for day. We've experienced all that. And as well as all of the other curses that are mentioned in this week's Torah portion. By the way, there is a custom, I'm sure everyone here knows the custom, that when the Torah is read on Shabbat, this Shabbat, and when the reader comes to the Tocha, to the Klalut, to these curses, the reader lowers his voice. Lowers his voice. Why? Because it's painful. It's painful. Who wants to? There was what they say about I think the Klausenberger Rebbe, maybe I think it was about him, survivor of the Holocaust. One time he was in shul, and the reader lowered his voice to read it, and he said "hecher," which is Yiddish for louder. The guy was like, I mean, you always lower your voice at this point. But he's like, louder, louder. They were looking at him, but he was the rabbi. He said, look, Hashem needs to hear this. Hashem needs to hear all of the curses nice and loud. And remember that he just did all of this to us in the Holocaust, right? To remind them to end it, because we've already been through fire. Now it's time to end it. Anyway, so that's just an anecdote story. So what we see here is, we saw in text 1 a promise about, or the tocha, the rebuke, the curse, and the prediction about exile. And text 2, we saw the aberrations saying that the predictions all came true. And it's the last close to 2,000 years we've been in exile, and it's been very difficult for us as a people. And at the same time, we have a tradition that tells us that all of the suffering, all of the turmoil, the difficult times, they're all on a deeper spiritual level. They're all part of the process of spiritual cleansing. There's a line in our prayers in Musaf of the holidays, on the major holidays. We say Mipnei Chatoenu. We have a recipe coming up. Mipnei Chatoenu Galinu Artzenu. Because of our sins, we have been exiled from our land. That galut or galus, exile, is a product, or is the consequence of our sins. It's not just a punishment; it's also a cleansing process. If we take a look at text number 4, Rashi actually alludes to this. I'm going to read text number 4. Take a look-see at text. We're skipping text 3. If you look at text 4, Rashi says the following: as the day grows dark at night and then shines again, so did God make it bright for you before, and will make it bright for you again. The curses and sufferings preserve you and enable you to stand before him by cleansing you of your sins. And that is, we could say, a deeper understanding, a deeper angle on the curses and the punishment, is that it's not just entirely negative, although it is. To be careful how we say this, because the whole point of the class is to analyze this. But he says there is a rehabilitative purpose over here in exile, in Jewish suffering, etc. And if we think about it in the context of, it's almost like what we say about the Jewish take on Gehinnom. And we're doing running a course right now that we've done before called Journey of the Soul. I think many are taking it or have taken it. And the Jewish perspective on Gehinnom, on hell, is exactly this: that it's not a punishment, it's not like a destination, but it's rather a pass-through. It's a cleansing process on the way to heaven, on the way to paradise. So we have to kind of get rid of the material attachment or any negativity or negative memories, negative experiences. Got to shake that out. Got to kind of work that out of the system. And, in the washing machine, the piece in the middle and those top loaders back in the day was called an agitator. You got to agitate a little bit. And in a similar way, we just saw what Rashi said in text number 4. The idea that it's galut, right? It's the process of exile, etc., that cleanses, that kind of removes any trace of negativity that needs to be removed. And yet, despite all that, you don't like that. Yeah, neither do I. Despite all that, and by the way, neither does God, and that's what we're about to see. This is something shocking. Neither does.
I wonder why he would regret it.
Oh, hold on one second. So that's what we're up to right now. So take a look at text number 5. You know what, Shifra, if you don't mind, read text number 5 on page 119. But hold on one second. Let me just pull this up. Text number 5. This is from the Talmud tractate Sukkah, and take a look at what the Talmud says.
Rabbi Hannah, son of Acha, said in the name of the sages of the school of Rob, God regrets creating 4 things: the exile, the Chaldeans, the Ishmaelites, and the evil inclination.
So there we go. 4 things that God regrets. That's like a great title of a BuzzFeed article, right? You won't believe the 4 things God regretted making, right? Click here for more. So here are the 4 things the Talmud says that God created but regrets. Galus, right? Galut, exile, number 1. Number 2, the Kasdim, the Yishmaelim, the Ishmaelites, and the evil inclination. Let's break this down. Well, let's skip the first one because that's what we're going to focus on in a second. Who were the Kastim? Who were the Kastim? Does that name sound familiar? Who were the Kastim? Anybody familiar with the term or Kastim? What's or Kastim? Do you remember?
Abraham came from.
Oh, excellent. Give this man an extra piece of kugel.
Please.
Legit.
Please.
Yes. You get an extra piece of the potato kugel.
You can give it to Dr. Maxie because she's still sponsoring this thing right now. If she wants it.
Everyone gets kugel. I'm just saying, as you buzzed in first, you get the extra
All right,
piece.
I'll take it. I'll take the kugel.
All right, there you go. So here's the deal. Ur Kasdim was the place where Abraham came from. In fact, why is it called Ur Kasdim? Ur also means fire or light, but fire, because that is where he was thrown into the furnace. The famous story when Avram was, he had discovered God and monotheism, and he preached monotheism. This is before Lech Lecha, before God told him to get out of Dodge, which I guess makes sense given this story. But like before that, so he was thrown, he was arrested essentially by the king, whose name was Nimrod, and he was threatened by pain of death to give up his monotheistic ideas. He refused. They threw him into the fire, and that is Ur Kasdim. That is the place called Ur Kasdim. So Kasdim was a place, and the people there were pagans. But more than that, rabbinically, we associate the Kasdim with the first exile, with the destruction of the first temple. Because although the first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, the Kasdim, there was an army. They sent an army to participate in that, and they were part of that. And it seems like in rabbinic literature, Kasdim and Babylonians, it's kind of like all lumped together in the same group. So God regrets making the Kasdim. God regrets making the Ishmaelim. Were the Ishmaelim? Right? Ishmaelim. Yeah, that's what it says. That's what it says. I didn't write this. The Talmud says this. God regrets making the evil inclination, and God regrets creating the institution of galus, exile. I have a few questions. I'm sure you have a few questions. Shifra, you asked the question before. The question is on multiple levels. Number one, right? That's what the Talmud says. We just read the Talmud. It's clear. It's black and white, right? It's not conjecture. It's what it says. God regrets making four things: the exile, the Kasdim, the Ishmaelim, and the Yitzhar, and the evil inclination. Okay. Number one, what does it mean that God regrets making it? What does that even mean? God regrets making it. You know what? The term regret comes in when you do something, or choose something, or don't do something, and then later on it doesn't work out, and you're like, oh, I regret doing that, or oh, I regret not doing that. Right? Like Jackie Mason jokes. Every Jew walks around New York saying, I could have bought that building. It was $5, right? It's like regret, right? What is regret? Regret means I messed up. And that's a product of the fact that we don't see the future. In other words, since we're limited by the strictures of time, we're limited by the limitations of time. We make choices in the moment and we think those choices make sense later on, or we think they're good, or we convince ourselves that they're not so bad. And then later on, it blows up, it doesn't work. We say, oh, I regret it. If only I had, or if only I hadn't. That's what we say. If only I had bought that building. If only I hadn't said that thing. If only I had whatever it was. I had an opportunity, I could have. By the way, it's interesting because I've heard from many people who lived in New York who told me, it just came to my head now, like, oh, I wish I would have gone to see the Rebbe when he was right. Like, wish I would have gone just like to check out 770, to see the action as it was going down, to receive $1 and a blessing on a Sunday. A regret. In other words, we didn't know, we didn't realize then, right? Sometimes we do know and we do realize, but we think we have more time. Right? I regret not spending more time with a loved one. I regret not saying in my final conversation X, Y, or Z. Why? Because we didn't know that was going to be the final conversation. We didn't know. How could we have known? Human beings are limited. We don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know how things transpire. We don't know the timeline on things. We don't know how things play out. And therefore, it's understandable that human beings will have regrets. However, God Almighty is not subject to the limitations of time. God is not like, oh, I didn't see that coming. I wish I would have done something different. That's not the God we believe in. God transcends time. God created the limitation of time, but is not bound by those very limitations. Imagine you create a universe, you create a world with a structure, a limitation, with rules. You're not bound by those rules. You created those rules. God transcends the entire, not just that God transcends time, God transcends the concept of limitation, which means that to God, there's no such thing as, whoops, didn't see that coming. Oh man, I wish I would have made a different decision, right? Oh, the lottery, I wish I would have chosen the right numbers. What does that even mean? What kind of regret is there with God? I think there is or there was like a $800 million jackpot, 900 million. It's funny. I always find it funny how like, I would say a lot of people, myself included, it's like, oh, it's a few million, I can't be bothered. A billion, now I'm going to get involved. As if, number one, the odds are greater when it's a billion, like in your favor, like as if, and as if like the 1 or 2 million wouldn't also help out. It's just a thing. It's like, no, I would never take a penny less than $1.1 billion. Otherwise, don't waste my time. It's not worth it. I'm not standing in line and purchasing a ticket. It's like, okay. Anyway, that's just me. I'm just self-reflecting in the moment, but moving on. The point is, human beings can have regrets. Human beings have regrets because we didn't know, we didn't realize, we didn't think it through, we made a mistake, we thought we knew, we didn't know. Later on, it turns out we made a mistake. God can't make mistakes. That's not the God we believe in, a God that makes mistakes. So what does it mean that God regrets making exile? God regrets the custom. God regrets the Ishmael. God regrets the Yitzhar. What does it mean God regrets? Number one. And question number two is based on what we learned before. We learned before that galut, exile, has a positive purpose. It's the ringer. The ringer. Doesn't sound right. It's the agitator. It's the imagine your shirt thrown into the washing machine. Everything was fine. You were hanging out, maybe even on a hanger, right? The ultimate place to hang out is on something called a hanger. You're hanging out on a hanger. The next thing you know, you're picked up from the hanger, kind of like smushed a little bit, thrown in, the door closes and it's dark. And now you're thinking, I don't know, this is new. This is surprising. Didn't see that coming. The next thing you know, water. And then you're thinking, do I have a nose? Can I survive underwater? I don't even know, right? Do I need to breathe? Then chemicals, soap comes. And then it starts moving around and you're like, what has happened? But at the end of the process, you're clean, right? The shirt is clean. That's the goal. And we said that. So then why does God regret it? If there's a positive purpose, if galus, exile, has a positive end, then wherein lies the regret? What's the problem? You guys with me on the two questions? Number one, how can God regret? And number two, why does God regret? Specifically, the context of this week's Torah portion, the idea of galus, the idea of exile.
And then why doesn't he do something about it?
Oh, there you go. Even better. If he regrets it, your hands are tied. I'm so sorry. It's like, you know, when you call customer service, it's like, so there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. What, really? Like, that's it? Like, oh, I'm so sorry, but that's our, what do they say? That's our policy.
Policy.
Love the policy answer. Like, it's our policy. Like, okay, so God's policy is that he created exile, but he really doesn't like it. Okay, I have an idea. I have a crazy suggestion. God, let me introduce you to God, who makes all the rules and who can change the rules, who can change the policy. Oh, I totally regret making this. Do you know when the Talmud was written? Like 1,600 years ago. Like 300 years or 400 years into our current exile. We're now 1,600 years ago. the Talmud is recording that God regrets making galus. Hello, can I speak to a manager? Can we fix the problem that you admit is a problem? What is going on? The whole Talmudic passage makes no sense. It's one of those things where you could read it and be like, oh, cute. God regrets 4 things, and then move on. Or you can like analyze it and say, this doesn't make sense. Number one, I'm going to reorder the questions now. Number one, regrets making it. Why does he regret making it? We just said there's a positive purpose. It cleanses us of any things that need to be cleansed. Number one. Number two, regret implies that he made a mistake or that he didn't see it coming. Well, how does that can't pertain to God, who is beyond all limitations and knows the future and whatever. And number three, if he really somehow did regret it, so let him change it. What's going on? And so what we need to do is re-examine the word regret, because clearly to apply the human meaning of the word regret to God doesn't make any sense. It's a misguided endeavor and it's a misunderstanding. God can't, by his very definition, God can't regret something. Because again, regret implies you didn't realize, you didn't see it coming, or it turned out differently than what you anticipated. That can't be with God. God is not caught by surprise. Okay. Rather, regret means that he knows exactly what he's doing, but he's creating something, these 4 things, creating something that they themselves are regretful. I don't know if the English works, and I don't know that it would have another language which would work for that matter. But the point is, it's not that God regrets, like, oh, I feel so bad for doing that. Oh, I really shouldn't have. It's not what regret means. It means he created these 4 things that they are things that are regretful. In other words, they are not good things. These are things that in and of themselves are not good. But sometimes, and we know this truth in life, sometimes something not good is still necessary. One example that we might think of is, a medical example would be like chemotherapy. Like no one would say that is a good thing in and of itself. It's like a good thing. It's toxic, right? It's toxic for the body. But sometimes it's necessary, even as it's harmful, even as it's devastating, right? In and of itself, sometimes you still need it, even though it's not good, but sometimes you need something that's not good. That doesn't make it good. And that's the meaning of the word regret. Regret means God created 4 things that he regrets. Doesn't mean he wishes he wouldn't have done it. Doesn't make sense. It means, of course, he knows what he's doing. But it's trying to indicate, the Talmud is trying to impress upon us how even as he created these 4 realities, and even as on some level they're needed in creation, otherwise he wouldn't have put them here, nonetheless, they don't become good. Most things, if they're needed, they then take on meaning and they become good. And we say, you know what? Actually, it's actually a good thing. But these are 4 things, even as they're necessary, they never become good. Does that make sense? Necessary and good are not the same thing. So most of the time you would say, I'm just repeating myself, but I just want to make sure that it's landing, that the message is landing and is being understood. Most things we say, if you need it, then it has a positive purpose, right? It's necessary, it's leading to something positive. So then it itself contains that positive that it's leading toward, right? Since it's the way to achieve the positive, so it too contains that positive. But some things.
Like the necessary evil?
No.
Okay.
That's the other example.
Okay.
Now, sometimes we say, I don't know, this is not going to be the, so for example, just basic example in Hasidic philosophy, the idea of eating, right? We need to eat. And so now, since human beings need to eat, so now there's this whole thing of kosher, right? Kosher comes in because of food, and food comes in because you need food to live. Great. So like this. Is it a mitzvah? Simple question. Is it a mitzvah to eat a sandwich Tuesday afternoon? I'll tell you this. I've read through the Torah a few times. I haven't encountered that one. Thou shalt eat a sandwich on a Tuesday. Doesn't say it. There's no mitzvah to do that. Now, there's an overarching mitzvah to take care of your body, your health, which we would say is an umbrella mitzvah that includes, in general, that would include eating, because you can't survive without eating, sure. But there's no specific mitzvah to eat. But now, once we're eating, we say, okay, so now we have kosher, and now kosher is a mitzvah. So if you're eating, make sure that it's kosher. Great. And then we say that since the food is for the purpose of living and you're doing it in a way that you're eating kosher, so now the food becomes a positive experience. Now, I wouldn't say the sandwich in and of itself is holy, but it's being used for a holy purpose. So now we almost say it's part of that process. We could say that it's a holy sandwich, right? Like that restaurant in Crown Heights, Holy Schnitzel, that just opened up. Anyway, okay. Holy schnitzel, but not as good as the schnitzel that I just made at home. Just saying, not for nothing. All right, but back to the story. So there are things that we wouldn't say that you necessarily, in and of themselves, are positive, but since they come or they're used for positive purpose, so then they also become positive. They also gain an element of positivity. But then there are things that even though you need it for a certain reason, they still remain evil. And that's what we would call a necessary evil. In other words, it is necessary, but even as it's necessary, it never loses its darkness. It remains forever dark. It remains forever not desired, not good. It's again, the example that comes to mind is chemotherapy, pumping destructive chemicals into a body. It's not a good thing. You might need it. It might be necessary. That doesn't make it a good thing. In other words, the outcome, please God, is good, but nothing about the experience is good. Correct? You with me on this? I don't know if I'm giving a perfect example. Just to be very clear, I'm giving an example. I don't know if it's a good example, but I'm trying to give an example to at least make it make sense. So there's certain things that you need it for something else, and so it's not so bad. You need it. It's helping out. It's good. It's neutral. It's fine. Great. Certain things, even when you need it and it's absolutely necessary, it never becomes good. It never moves off of its evil stature. It is negative, it is horrible, it's evil, it's painful, and it's necessary. And those don't contradict each other. David, jump in.
First, I had a question. What is the Hebrew word for regret, or the root word that means regret?
Oh, here it's charata. Charet, the chet, resh, and tet. Those are the three letters. Charat.
Okay.
Charata, mitcharet, nitcharet. Yeah, the ches, resh, tet. You'll see it in text. Hold on. In text 5, Arba mischaret alehen hakadosh baruch hu shabram. There are 4 things that mischaret, that he regrets.
I was going to try to look around and see if there's something about if that root has other meanings or something that might shed some light on.
That would be interesting.
But anyway, the other question is another way of saying it, that because like you, God, I don't think God can regret, or in the sense that we regret things, because for all the reasons that you said. But could another way of saying it be that God regrets having to do it?
Almost. It's almost like God is apologizing, like, I'm so sorry, this is terrible. It's still
like
needed.
when you said, like back when we used to spank our kids, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, along those lines. I'll tell you, maybe the best way to put it is actually the next text that we can read inside, which is text 6a. Toba, I think we're up to you. But hold on one second. Don't read it yet. Hold on. Let me pull it up. This is how this is in the language of the Rebbe who's explaining this idea. Look what he says over here.
It goes without saying that God does not regret in the literal sense. God forbid. He does not change his mind and rue something he did. God forbid. Rather, divine regret highlights the negativity in something he created.
So that last line is powerful. What does it mean when we talk about divine regret? It doesn't mean God like wishes he didn't make it. Although, no, it does mean that on some level. It means he wishes he didn't have to make it. Yeah. Divine regret highlights the negativity in something he created. By saying he regrets, what it means is that even as it exists, which means that it needs to exist, God says, I don't want this to exist. I need it to exist. I don't want it to exist. It's not good that it exists. But I still need it. And that tension is remarkable. That tension is also unique because most things that are, it means that it's moved off of from a place of either, maybe slight negativity or neutrality to a place of, yeah, okay, let's bring it onto the team. We need it in the roster. We need it on the shelf. Let's make it happen. Whereas certain things, even as they're on the roster, we don't want it on the roster. We need it on the roster. We don't want it on the roster. In other words, it highlights that even as it exists and it may serve a purpose, it's not good. And we should never get it twisted. We should never say, well, if it's needed, then it's good. It's like this was the danger post-Holocaust when people, including rabbis, would get up and say, you know why the Holocaust happened? Sorry. Because of the Holocaust, we have the land of Israel. And the danger in that, what's the danger in that? Number one, well, first of all, who says? Like, how do you know that? Right? How do you actually know that? I mean, that's conjecture. That's someone saying, well, I think that's not something anyone knows. Now we know that this happened. We can map the chronology of events, but to say that this happened in order for that to happen, or this happened because that should happen, again, number one, who knows that? Who can say that definitively? Number one. Number two, and this is the most important point. Number two, that there is a danger the moment you say that X, whatever, has a utility, and that utility, that purpose is positive, the implication is you're saying that X was a positive event. That's the danger. The danger is to say, so if this brought about positive, then I guess this was a good thing. That's typically the way and that's most times when we say, this led to something positive, the implication and the meaning and what it actually is that, so there was an element of good in that. And what the Talmud is saying, there's 4 things that are necessary, but they always remain bad. Even if you say, well, there's a purpose. Galus brings out whatever it is within us, as we read before. It purifies us, cleanses us. It shakes us, shakes out the schmutz, shakes out the dirt from us. Sure, wonderful, Yasher Koach, thank you very much. It doesn't make it good. It never becomes good. X, in that case, never flips. X remains forever dark. It never becomes good. Let's take a look. Wow. Okay, 1 second. Let's pause here for a second and let's go a little bit deeper. So to go a little bit deeper, we need to posit the following. Anything that exists only exists as long as God causes it to exist. If the thing is what we would call kedusha, if it's holiness, if it has holiness, so the thing, let's just define holiness for a second. Holiness means that there's a certain transparency to truth, to the ultimate truth of God. In other words, it doesn't get in the way, or there's an element of it that is transparent, that is open to its source. It doesn't resist its source. That's what makes it holy, right? It doesn't provide a resistance to God. It channels God. Anything that's holy, anything that's kadosh, will live for eternity. That's the definition. It's kind of like, imagine like the perfect machine, perfectly seamless. It would never conceptually break down. Everything's perfect. Or maybe a better example is so many different examples I'm thinking of. I don't know, something as simple as speaker cables, like audio cables or video cables for that matter. It's like, does the cable, so you have a signal flowing through a cable, or internet, whatever it is, you have a signal flowing through a cable. How much resistance does the cable have for the signal, as opposed to how smoothly does the signal flow through the cable. The purer the cable, right? You can spend a lot of money on cables. The purer the cable, the purer the signal, the less resistance, and the more what you see on one end is what there was on the other end. It's gonna channel it perfectly. The more resistance, the more it blocks the source, the less similar it is. The more a thing channels purely the divine, God is eternal, the thing and that level will also be eternal. The more the elements, or the more it blocks, it resists, the less eternal it is. Most things that exist are a mixture of good and evil, good and bad. Most things. A mitzvah is all good. A sin is all bad. But most things are either or, like the sandwich, like the sushi. Is it good? Is it bad? It's kosher sushi. Good or bad? I don't know. It's kosher sushi. I mean, I would say that that's good. But I mean, like in the mitzvah realm, like it's neutral. The goodness of it is eternal, and the mundane element of it is temporal, is limited. There are certain things that we just said, even as they're needed, are forever evil, are forever bad, are forever no good. Those things will not live on in eternity. Those things are only needed as long as they're needed. The moment they're not needed, it's over. It's over. End game. Take a look at text 6b. Let's continue. Let's continue inside. I'm going to read this one. All right. Take a look at what the Rebbe says. That God deems these things regrettable implies that their existence is not absolute. This is going to be, and we'll see soon, this is going to be a very important point. Their existence is not absolute, meaning they will eventually become null and extinct. This is because God regrets them. Again, not regrets like, oh, whoops, I didn't see that coming, but God, even as they are, doesn't want them. That he desires them only for what they can accomplish, but he has no inherent interest in them, like Golos, like the Kastim, Ishmaelim, and like the Yetzer Hara. They're needed for a purpose that doesn't make them good. And because there's no good, therefore, there's no absolute existence. There's no real existence. Even as they exist, they're only existing insofar as God needs them for a certain amount of time. And then out, ice, done, finish, yeah.
But what was the purpose of the Holocaust? What good did that do? That it was so needed?
I don't know. I don't think anyone can profess to know why the Holocaust happened or why any suffering happens. I think, on the contrary, what we're saying is that these things are terrible. These things are bad. God even says, I regret them. In other words, there's nothing good. Now, if it existed, so right, so it needed. So if I were to be God, I could also, I would, I guess, relate to that need. But I'm not God, and I'm not meant to be God. And so we reject it. In other words, how are we meant to look at it? How are we meant to look at the things that God rejects? That God regrets. We're not meant to look at the utility. That's God's business. We're meant to look at the fact that it's regrettable. These are not good. And we're supposed to work to end them, to end the exile, to end the enemies, to end the suffering, to end the evil inclination. That's our goal, is to end it, not to keep it going. Again, that's why I said before about the Holocaust and the danger of saying, well, we got the state of Israel. That means we're implying that we're applying a reason, and now we transform it to good. Our messaging is not that God needs it, but that God regrets it. The Talmud tells us that there are 4 things that God regrets. The Talmud doesn't sit and say the reason why he still created them. No, it goes the other way. It says these are 4 things that God regrets. And I'm saying, even though God needs it, because if he didn't, they wouldn't be here. Nonetheless, the overarching message is not good. These are not absolute things.
But that's contradictory to text 4. The curses and sufferings preserve you, enable you to stand before him by cleansing you of your sins. Well, I don't see that that's happening. I'm having a hard time with it.
I hear you. Text number 4 implies that there is a purpose and utility. That doesn't imply that it's good. That doesn't imply that we should embrace it. Again, the best example that I can think of is chemotherapy. Does it serve? Can it serve a purpose? Yes. Is it sometimes necessary? Yes. Is it something that would say, well, okay, then I guess it's good? We wouldn't say that it's good. We wouldn't say that we want it. We would say, let's do our best to get rid of the disease so that we would never need this. That would be the goal. The goal would be to uproot it entirely, to uproot the entire operation. When I say operation, I mean literally, I mean the entire concept. This is very similar to what we're talking about here. God, yes, for whatever reason, God needs it or whatever. That doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it desirable. In fact, God himself regrets it. Why does he do it? For whatever reason he does it. That doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it desirable. And it doesn't mean it's not a regrettable thing. On the contrary, the message for us is it's regrettable. Now, this message is really taking us into a very, very deep place, because what it implies is the following: is that these things, and we'll focus on Gullus, the first of the four that was mentioned in the Talmud, because that's the one that our Torah portion speaks about, the foreshadowing or the foretelling of the Gullus that will befall us as a people. And we've experienced it over nearly the last 2,000 years. And the Talmud says that God regrets it, which means not that he says, whoops, what did I do? But even as it's here, it's not desirable. It's not desired. It's not a good thing. And what that means for us, and this is the powerful messaging that means for us, is that when we look at the world and we see darkness and we see pain and we see suffering and we see tsaras, right? We see difficulty, we see a cold world, we see an antagonistic world, we see an anti-Semitic world, etc., in so many different ways. We see all of the problems. We have to remember this. None of the problems are good, and that may sound obvious, but even on a deeper level, none of them are what reality is meant to be. These are regrettable things. These are unfortunate things, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way. Unfortunately, but these are unfortunate. These are not desirable things, and therefore it becomes our mission to eradicate, to get rid of the undesirable. Let's take a look. I'm going to read some text, and hopefully this picture will be.
Rabbi,
yes.
In Bereshis, when they talk about Tohu Vavohu Hoshek Tahom, so we had 4 exiles and he ended 3 of them. So we're just anticipating the 4th one.
Correct. And as we'll see soon, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? There will not be another exile again, meaning it doesn't live on. It doesn't live on beyond its shelf life. Once it's served its purpose, or whatever God needs it for, it's going to be over because it has no redeeming quality. Take a look at a beautiful text 10a. Take a look at this. Take a look at text 10a. We're skipping a few texts. Don't worry. I will be your DJ tonight. Woe to those. This is a verse from Isaiah. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. What a message for our world, huh? I mean, I'm just going to say, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. How many times have we seen that over the last 11 months, right? Unbelievable. Who present darkness as light and light as darkness, bitterness as sweet and sweetness as bitter. It needs to be clear, and we can't get it twisted. We need to know what's right, what's good, and what's evil, what's dark and what's light, what's bitter and what's sweet, and not confuse the two. And when God says galus, exile is regrettable, we have to know that it's not good. It's not the ideal state. You know, part of the challenge is, this has been a challenge over the last, again, 1900 years, not in all eras, but in many eras, it's been a challenge of becoming complacent, of thinking, life is not so bad. It's okay. Life is okay. It's like the parable of the cave, if I can make up a Platonic parable, because of my extensive experience with Greek philosophy. And this could be totally made up, but I think there is some sort of parable of the cave. Maybe I'm mixing up things, but it's okay. I'm fine doing that. If he made it up, I could also make it up. But anyway, there's like this parable of a family, probably not him, a family that they're thrown into a cave. and it's terrible and it's dark and it's depressing. And then as the years go by and there are more generations of people that live in the cave, eventually a few generations in, the fact that the real world has light and there's a sun is just a rumor. No one even knows firsthand and ever seen it. And you have to speak to this. Well, maybe not no one knows firsthand. There's the elder Zayda, like the great parents. You ask them, like, yeah, we remember when we were kids, we were outside above ground. There was a sun, there was light, and the little kids are like, yeah, shkoyach. Thank you very much for your delusions. Like, never seen it, not real, never happened, right? Not a real thing. This is what Gullus is, when the darkness seems like light. Like, no, this is good. There's a light, overrated. This is fine. We're good right here, right? This is all we expect. And we become complacent. We make the best out of a regrettable situation. And regrettable is not even the right word in this context. It's way too soft. We make the best out of a ridiculous situation. Gullus shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, God needs it, he made it. He himself says, I don't want it. He himself says it shouldn't be. It's not, we can't settle in and be, okay, I guess this is what we got. That's a mistake. To adopt the Gullus mentality is the first mistake. The first mistake of Gullus is to say, this is the new normal. It's not normal. We can't adopt it as normal. Let's keep on going. I think it's hard to articulate the feeling of this, but I think the more text we read, it's going to crystallize and we'll feel it in our gut. I think that's the key. It's less about the head and more about the gut. All right, let's keep on going with these texts. Okay, text 10b. Jonathan Sacks, and no one writes like him. Jonathan Sacks, a blessed memory, writes that this is really what Judaism is about. Judaism is a protest against the world that is in the name of the world that ought to be. Look at this guy. Who writes like this? Unbelievable. Unbelievable author. To be a Jew is to seek to make a difference, to change lives for the better, to heal some of the scars of a fractured world. Okay, I feel like that opening line, right, was the line. Judaism is a protest against the world that is in the name of the world that ought to be. In other words, to never become complacent with the world that is. Because anyone can say, well, this is what we got. We'll make the best of it. And Judaism says, no, make the best of this. This shouldn't be. And that needs to be our perspective with the entirety of Gullus. We shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't say, okay, but at least we have a nice shul. At least we have that. That's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but we shouldn't become complacent. We shouldn't say it's fine. Mashiach, I don't know. I think we're good. Atlanta is pretty comfortable. And Boca, when I visit, the restaurants, are you kidding me? Boca, 30 restaurants in 5 square miles. You can eat whatever you want. Gullus, I don't know. Boca's not bad. That's where our head is. That's where our head is. Like, we've made peace with this. That's the point. Maybe that's the line. Never make peace with this. This is not what it's meant to be. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on developing this. All right. Text 11. We say this before we recite the blessing, the grace after meals on Shabbat and holidays. B'shuv Hashem et shivat Zion heyunu kechomim. When God brings back the returnees of Zion, we will say we were like dreamers. In other words, let me say that in my own words. When Mashiach comes, we'll say, what were we thinking? Not what we're thinking. Where were we? What was that? Hayinu kechomim will be like we'll have been like dreamers. We'll say, what ridiculous world were we living in? An upside down world where, as we saw, Isaiah said, where good is evil and evil is good and light is dark and dark is light and bitter is sweet and sweet is bitter. Olam havuch reisi. It's an upside down world. And we make peace with it. Not we. We could make peace with it. It's like, okay, this is what it is. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Fight against reality? Yes, that's Judaism. We're meant to fight against reality. Text 12. Text 12. The Rebbe continues this idea. We must not despair, God forbid. And you know what he's saying? Don't ever take it for granted that this is the best it's going to get. This is it. Life is terrible. What are you going to do? All right. At least we have Netflix. Don't get to that place, right? First of all, what's on Netflix anyway? We must not despair, God forbid, nor have we reason to fear exilic circumstances. That second line is don't fear it either. Fearing means you take it seriously. Let's continue. We know that this is not our true reality, and that it will finally, in fact, imminently, please God, become null and void. This is especially true in our era when we can already hear the footsteps of Mashiach. Our task is to hasten the end of the exile with enthusiasm by increasing the light of the world through Torah and mitzvot. This will speed up the expulsion of the exilic darkness. This is the Rebbe making a call to action, a call to, number one, never accept the status quo. If you want to change the status quo, the first step is not accepting it. The moment you accept it, you're done. Because what are you changing? You already accepted it. The moment in customer service where they say, well, this is the policy, you're like, okay, it's the policy. You're done. What's your next move? You've already accepted the policy. Step one is don't accept it. God doesn't even accept it, and he created it. God says, I regret it, meaning I don't like it. I made it, and I still reject it. We need to adopt the same mentality, sir.
Why that's important for us to know.
100%. The first step is it's not normal. It's not good. It's not normal. It's not real. It doesn't have it, so it's not absolute. It's not real. This is all like it's terrible and horrible, and it shouldn't be. Step one is not accepting it. Step two is now I can change. Now let me change. Let me change the circumstance. The moment we accept it is the moment that it's over. It's over. We've already accepted it. We've already made peace with it. Make peace with it. So what are you changing? You're changing that which you already made peace with. Well, how are you going to change it? The only leverage you have is when you rail against it. This is in general what happens when people get older. In general, right? You have the kids that are looking for revolutions, right? Because the kids they don't accept it. Then you get older and you realize, like, okay, well, this is what it is. The moment you say, well, this is what it is, you're done. You're done. You're finished. What are you changing? You already accepted it. The moment you say, well, this is what it is. I mean, this is the real world. This is the real world. Did you say that? Yeah, great. Come join us. Come join us for golf. I mean, it's done. You're finished. What are you changing? You're changing what you already accepted. The only shot you have is by rejecting it. Every single day you wake up and say, this is not real. Not that we live in some sci-fi, what's it called again? But this is not real. This is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not okay. This is not kosher. I don't accept this. And I don't accept it, not therefore, I want to speak to your manager. I don't accept this. I am therefore dedicating my day to create a world that fits the image that I know it ought to be. I'm going to create a world in which light is light, in which good is good, in which sweet is sweet. That's the world that I want to live in, and that's the world that I know is the true reality, and that's the world that I'm going to create. So it takes a few steps. Number one, don't accept evil and darkness and bitterness. Don't make that a reality. You and I don't give it that power. Number one. Number two, recognize the need to create the world that we do want to have. And number three, let's go out and do it. My friends, in this week's Torah portion, Moses talks about the bad stuff. And included in that is the foreshadowing of the exile. About the exile, God says, I don't like it. We need to wake up every morning and say, I don't like it. And I want to create a better world today. Thank you very much for joining me tonight for Torah Studies. I hope this message resonates. I hope you feel it not just here, but here in your gut, and hopefully in your heart, and hopefully that will inspire us all in our own way, and everyone does it differently, to make the change. Like the cliche goes, be the change you want to see. Sometimes cliches work, or sometimes cliches are accurate. Let's be the change. Let's create the change that we want to see in our world, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Without occasion, reason to make us go out and create a better world.
Maybe.
Because it talked about.
Right. You're saying because of the darkness, so that we now need to do some work to change it. Could
because it said.
Yeah. I think the way I read that is that it's just, no, the way I read text 4 is that the pain itself just burns away the any negativity. But that's all gullus mentality. I'm not saying, listen, that's not me. I'm just saying, but that's what the Rebbe would say is that's already, you've already climbed into gullus. You've already climbed and you've already said, okay, here's my poster of gullus on the wall, and let's find something positive. Don't put the poster up. It's like, look, I'm going to say something and you'll be like, yeah, obviously you said that you're a Chabad rabbi, but okay, I'm just going to say it anyway. It's like there's one person that you saw every day. I mean, if you're around, right? Or you see videos or you listen to talks. The Rebbe lived with this. He never accepted this as the reality. Even the greatest Jewish leaders, they said, look, post-Holocaust, the best we can do is like survive, like build up communities and whatever. And the Rebbe was like, that's the vision? That's the vision? Survival? You kidding me? We're going to conquer the world with light. Who was thinking in 1950 to conquer the world with light, Jewishly? You kidding me? It's not even the same. It's not like everyone else was here and the Rebbe was like here. It's a different wavelength. The Rebbe looked at this, rejected the totality of this as being real. This can't be tolerated or accepted. I'm not going to accept this as a reality. Imagine a person says, or a parent says, like, I don't accept this reality, this world for my children. That doesn't mean they're checking out of the world. It means that I am committing myself to create a better world. I don't accept this. I don't accept this situation, right? It's like, this is not okay. I'm speaking to the manager, but you're the manager. You're the one that can create the change. That's the difference. It's like the Rebbe very rarely left Crown Heights once he moved to New York and settled in Crown Heights, but like a few times he left Crown Heights, he left Brooklyn. He went to the Chabad overnight camp in the Catskills. He went like 3 times over the years, like in the 1950s. He visited the camp. And they tell a story about there was a kid in camp who wasn't a Chabad kid. And the Rebbe visited, and when camp was over, so his father, who was not a Chabad guy, he said, how was camp? Great. What was the highlight? The Lubavitcher Rebbe came to visit. He said, okay. Again, he wasn't like a Chabad guy. He's like, so what did he say? He said, the Rebbe said, Mashiach is coming. He said, and that was like the most intriguing thing that he heard. And like, well, but I tell you the same thing. He's like, yeah, but the Rebbe really believes it. It's a story. I heard that from the director of the camp, who's still with us, Rabbi Shem Tov from Philadelphia, who runs the camp. I mean, the Rebbe genuinely was not okay with this. Genuinely. Most people at some point are like, that's what we got.
Or maybe you even think it's good that you accept it because you're getting through it. That's your faith.
Sure. Yeah, you could say, right. Step healing from grief and trauma, right? One of the steps is acceptance.
Yeah.
I can move on. I can once I accept it, now I can deal with it. No, that's the point of the Talmud. The way through the lens of obviously this is all based on Rebbe's lens and how he interprets the Talmud. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, 4 things God regrets. What does regret mean? Again, we went through this before. Regret means it's not good. Don't accept it. Don't accept it. You watch videos, you hear Sichos talks to the Rebbe. The one thing that strikes you is, oh man, this person is authentic. Very like purely authentic, like really means it, like really authentic. Rebbe didn't get caught. He was never. You couldn't convince him that this was okay. It's not okay. We make the best of it, and we're successful, and we live, and we have houses, and we have, amenities, and we have this, and we may even have Netflix and whatever it is, and we have all these things. we have the kosher restaurants, and we have a new burger place in Toko. I don't know if you guys have tried it. Sababa's Burgers. It's the next greatest thing. Can you imagine a new burger place in Atlanta? Fantastic, wonderful. Maybe it's okay. Mashiach, I say it in Shemona Esrei, I say it in the Amidah 3 times a day. It's like 4, 5, 6, 7 of the 18, 19 blessings are about Mashiach. but do I really mean it? Because, I mean, right now, things are pretty good. So I say it, but I don't really mean it. That's a Golos mentality. Saying, get rid of that. Reckon this is not okay. This is not absolute truth. It's not absolutely real. It can't be. This can't be. We have to wake up every morning and say, this is not the way it needs to be. And not, well, therefore I'm going to give up. No. This is driving. There's a motivating force. It's not the way it needs to be. And therefore, I'm going to do something amazing today. That's the goal. Not to be so dissatisfied that we check out. No, it's all about checking in. It's like I'm creating the change that I know needs to be. All right. And I've said it a bunch of times, but I think hopefully the message is the message. All right. Good. Make sense? Now all we have to do is do it. All right. One detail left. You've mapped it out. Now we need to do it. Each in our own way. Steps, small steps forward, but the mindset is important. Thank you very much for joining. Yes.
Great class. I appreciate it. And this may be like a topic to answer this question may take too long. And if so, just tell me, we'll talk about it later, but I completely understand what you're saying about Gullus. And I think a lot of the same rationale applies to why evil inclination is on this list. But what about the Chaldeans and the Ishmaelites? Why are they on the list? Do you have a
I skipped over some texts that may allude to it. Let's see. Did we have anything useful in it? I don't know. Let's see. Sorry, I'm sure it's useful, but I wonder if it's useful in the context of your question. Yetzer hara, yeah, that was obvious. Also, it's the same idea. One second. The custom. What was the custom? Yeah. Here we go. My understanding of it, and this may be incorrect, is that Kasdim Ishmaelim represents the very same idea of Gullus. In other words, the nations that have been the ones that have facilitated the experience of Gullus. Gullus means exile. Exile in foreign lands under foreign rule. We've been under way more than two nations, but these are like the two templates, the two archetypes, as it were, Kasdim and Ishmaelim, of those that subject the Jewish people to exile. And so the idea is that the exile itself as an institution, and those that are facilitating the exile, again, I don't think it's about, a DNA, like who's a Chaldean, who's an Ishmaelite. It's more of like they represent this institution that is regrettable and therefore doesn't have that. We should never tolerate that. And not as, again, it's not about a specific people today. It's about kind of, that's my understanding. That
Thank you.
The Kasdim were involved in the first destruction. Now the Ishmaelim are interesting because usually we say Rome, right? You usually say Rome as a euphemism for the second temple. Or Edom, Rome, Esau. Here's Ishmaelites. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it foreshadowing some of the stuff that we've seen? I'm not sure. That would be more conjecture on my part. Yeah, Richard. Oh wait, hold on. You just muted yourself. Up.
I was gonna say Esau. I didn't understand what Esau was doing
there. Yeah.
Okay, you answered that. So he's kind of mixed in that with Ishmaelites, right? Or not? Because
that's that. So the real answer is I'm not sure. Yeah. But my general sense of these two nations is that it's tied into the whole exile. It's tied into the Gullus.
Okay. Well, weren't the Chaldeans forerunners of the Babylonians? I mean, weren't they before the Babylonians and somehow got folded in?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that would be for the first temple. And you would think that maybe the second nation would be for the second temple, which would be Edom, Rome, etc. But it went Ishmaelites. I don't know. I'm sure there are commentators that discuss it, but in general, it doesn't mean as the individual person, they serve no purpose, exile serves no, or they're evil. It would be more of the nations that are exiling the Jewish people. That's all part of that experience that we need to know is not good and not okay and not desirable, and we should never accept it. We should never make peace with it. Maybe that's a better word. Do we make peace with the status quo? The answer is we should not make peace, and we should try to change the status quo. Stated simply, that's the point of tonight's class. Don't make peace with the status quo, and work and endeavor to change the status quo to the way it should be. That's the bumper sticker. You would need a long car for that bumper sticker. The good news is you can always get a Cybertruck and just run it along the side, because it is kind of plain. Otherwise, I would say it could use a little, not a bumper sticker, but a little side sticker. We'll work on that.
I'm running marquee. Wait, where is Amalek from? Is Yishmael or Esav?
No, Amalek. Where's Amalek
I can't remember.
from? Amalek.
I'm not sure, but I think it should be Esau. I think he's an illegitimate child of someone.
I do want to say that it's Ace. I do want to say
I
that
thought it
it's-
was Esau.
Yeah, I think it's Ace.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? I don't know. Ishmael's got mixed in here somehow. I don't know. Again, maybe it's, I don't know. Not sure. All right. That's it.
Very nice class. Very nice class.
Thank you very much. All right. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Stay tuned. Let me just say this. I'm working on a bunch of things, a bunch of new things, events, and other cool things. Stay tuned for more information coming out in the next week or so. Till then, see you soon at the next one. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.